rang too early, too sharp, slicing through the quiet like a warning siren. Jamal Carter flinched as students poured into room 214, the fluorescent lights already buzzing overhead. He slid into his seat near the back, notebook open, pen ready, always ready. That was the rule. Be prepared. Be invisible. Be excellent. Ms. Whitmore stood at the front, arms crossed, lips pressed thin. Her eyes swept the room and stopped on him. They always did. "Jamal," she said, voice light but sharp underneath. "Did you even bother doing the reading this time?" A few students turned. A few smiled. Jamal felt the heat crawl up his neck. He had stayed up past midnight finishing the assignment. His mother asleep on the couch after a double shift. "Yes, ma'am," he said carefully. "I did." Ms. Whitmore tilted her head, amused. "Funny. Because students like you usually don't." The room went quiet. The hum of the lights grew louder. Jamal's fingers curled around his pen until his knuckles hurt. "Read the first paragraph," she said. "Let's see how far you get." He stood. His voice didn't shake. He read every word perfectly. Ms. Whitmore smiled anyway. Not proud. Not impressed. Cold. "See," she said to the class. "Even when they try, it's never quite enough." That was when Jamal noticed his phone vibrating in his pocket. Message after message. Someone was recording. Someone had heard. Ms. Whitmore leaned closer, lowering her voice just enough. "You should know your place before you embarrass yourself." The bell rang again. And Jamal realized, this moment wasn't ending here. The bell cut through the hallway noise like a blade, sharp and final. Jamal Carter stepped into room 214 and felt the air change. The classroom always smelled faintly of dry erase markers and old books, but there was something heavier in it today. Something tight, waiting. He took his usual seat near the back, second row from the window. Safe distance. Clear exit. His notebook was already open. Pen aligned with the margin. He'd learned early that preparation didn't earn praise, only survival. Ms. Whitmore stood at the front, adjusting the projector. Her heels clicked once, twice precise as punctuation. She didn't look at Jamal yet. That came later. It always did. "Good morning," she said. Her voice was pleasant, practiced. "We'll begin with last night's reading." A few students groaned softly. Jamal didn't move. He had finished the chapter twice, once before dinner and once again after midnight, just to be sure. Ms. Whitmore scanned the room, eyes gliding past raised hands, lingering where they wanted. "Jamal," she said. There it was. "Yes, ma'am," he answered. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. "Stand up." Chairs shifted. Someone behind him exhaled sharply. Jamal stood, heart steady, face neutral. "Did you complete the assigned reading?" she asked. "Yes," he said. "All of it." She nodded slowly, as if indulging a child's lie. "Interesting. Because historically, that hasn't been your strength." Few students laughed. Not loud. Careful. Jamal swallowed. "My grades say otherwise." The room stilled. Ms. Whitmore's eyes hardened, just for a second. "Confidence is good," she said. "Arrogance isn't." She turned to the board. "Read the first paragraph." Out loud. Jamal adjusted his grip on the book. He could feel his pulse in his ears, but his voice came out clean, controlled. He read every sentence clearly. No stumbles. No mistakes. When he finished, silence followed. Ms. Whitmore clapped once. Low. Deliberate. "Well," she said, "even exceptions can surprise you." Jamal didn't sit yet. He waited. He always waited. She tilted her head. "You may sit." As he lowered himself into the chair, his phone buzzed against his thigh. Once. Then again. He ignored it. Focus was protection. Ms. Whitmore continued the lesson, but her eyes kept drifting back to him. Every question landed near his desk. Every example brushed too close. "Some students," she said, "struggle with discipline. Structure isn't something they're raised with." Jamal's jaw tightened. A hand rose near the front. "Who are you talking about?" a girl asked. Ms. Whitmore smiled. "If the shoe fits." The buzzing in Jamal's pocket became insistent. He risked a glance. Message from Marcus. "I got it on video." Another followed. "Everything." Jamal's chest tightened. His fingers trembled before he curled them into his palm. Ms. Whitmore walked closer, stopping beside his desk. Her voice dropped, low enough to feel personal. "You should be careful," she said. "People notice when you step out of line." Jamal looked up at her. Really looked. "My line," he said quietly, "is doing my work." Her smile vanished. The bell rang, sudden and loud. Students stood, chatter erupting as if released from pressure. Jamal stayed seated, heart pounding now, understanding settling in like a storm. This wasn't over. Not even close. The office smelled like burnt coffee and lemon disinfectant, a combination Jamal would forever associate with restraint. He sat in the plastic chair beside his mother, knees bouncing despite his effort to stay still. The walls were lined with posters about respect, diversity, and zero tolerance, their bright colors mocking the silence that pressed down on him. The door opened. Assistant Principal Reynolds stepped in, followed by a guidance counselor Jamal barely knew. Both wore the same careful expression, concern measured out in professional doses. "Thank you for coming in, Ms. Carter," Reynolds said, offering a handshake. "Jamal." "Let's not waste time," his mother replied, her voice calm but tight. "My son was humiliated in front of his class." Reynolds nodded. "We're here to listen." Jamal felt the word settle wrong. Listen didn't mean believe. He had learned that already. The counselor folded her hands. "Jamal, can you explain what happened in your own words?" He took a breath. "Ms. Whitmore singled me out. Again. She implied I didn't do my work because of who I am. She said students like me don't try." Reynolds scribbled something on a pad. "Did she use explicit language?" "No," Jamal said. "She didn't have to." A glance exchanged. His mother leaned forward. "That's how this works," she said. "It's coded. It's polite. It still cuts." Reynolds cleared his throat. "We understand perceptions can differ." Jamal's fingers curled. "It wasn't perception. It was pattern." The counselor smiled faintly. "Patterns are difficult to establish from one incident." "There are others," Jamal said quickly. "Other students." Reynolds raised a hand. "Let's stay focused." The door opened again. Ms. Whitmore entered without knocking, blazer crisp, hair immaculate. She didn't look at Jamal at first. When she did, her gaze slid past him like he wasn't there. "I was told there was a concern," she said. "A concern?" Jamal's mother echoed. "Ms. Whitmore Saturday. I hold my students to high standards. Not everyone appreciates that." Jamal felt heat flood his face. "You embarrassed me." She smiled sadly. "Correction isn't embarrassment." "You said I didn't belong," he said. "I said nothing of the sort." Reynolds interjected. "Ms. Whitmore, Jamal feels targeted." "Feelings aren't facts," she replied smoothly. "I encourage him more than most." The counselor nodded. "Intent matters." Jamal's mother stood. "Impact matters more." A brief silence followed. Reynolds adjusted his glasses. "There is also a video." Ms. Whitmore stiffened. "A video?" "Yes," Reynolds said. "A student recorded part of the class." "That violates policy," she snapped. "Unauthorized recording." "But it exists," Jamal said. Ms. Whitmore turned to him then, eyes sharp. "You should have come to me privately." "I tried," Jamal said. "You laughed." Her jaw tightened. "This is being blown out of proportion." Reynolds sighed. "We will need to review the footage. Until then, Ms. Whitmore, please refrain from discussing this with students." Her smile returned, thinner now. "Of course." She stood and left without another word. The door closed. The room felt smaller. What happens now? Jamal asked. We'll investigate, Reynolds said. This takes time. How much? His mother asked. Reynolds hesitated. Weeks. Possibly longer. Jamal's stomach dropped. I still have to be in her class. We expect professionalism from all parties. His mother laughed once, sharp and humorless. That's it. Reynolds's voice softened. Jamal, these situations can be complicated. Jamal stood. It's not complicated when it keeps happening. The counselor looked at him gently. Speaking up takes courage. He nodded. So does ignoring it. You're very brave at that. They left the office together. In the hallway, Jamal's phone buzzed again. Notifications stacked on the screen. Messages, tags, unfamiliar numbers. Marcus texted. It's everywhere now. Jamal stopped walking. His mother turned. What is it? He showed her the screen. The video thumbnail stared back at him. Room 214, frozen mid-humiliation. The truth was already moving. And the school was behind it. By the next morning, Jamal's name no longer belonged to him. It floated through hallways before he arrived, whispered between lockers, typed into phones with thumbs that moved faster than thought. When he stepped onto campus, conversations stalled, then resumed at a lower volume. Eyes followed him. Some curious, some sympathetic, some sharp with judgment. He kept his head down and walked. In first period his phone buzzed non-stop. Unknown numbers. Instagram request. A local reporter's email forwarded by Marcus with the subject line circled in red. Jamal didn't open any of it. Attention felt less like validation and more like exposure, standing in bright light with nowhere to hide. At lunch he sat alone. Mind if I join you? He looked up. A girl stood there, gripping her tray like it might shake loose from her hands. Emily Foster, honors student, quiet, always sat near the front. Sure, Jamal said. She sat quickly, eyes darting. I just wanted to say, you weren't wrong. He nodded, remembering how she'd looked down at her notebook while Ms. Whitmore spoke. She did it to me too, Emily said. Not the same way, but similar. How? Jamal asked. She'd say I was surprisingly articulate, or ask if I needed extra help when I didn't. Emily hesitated. She treats some of us like exceptions, others like problems. Jamal swallowed. Did you ever report it? Emily shook her head. I didn't want trouble. After she left, 2 more students approached him before the bell rang. Then 3 more by the end of the day. Different stories. Same shape. You're not the first, one boy said quietly. Just the first they recorded. By third period, Jamal was called to the counselor's office again. This time the door was already open. Inside sat 2 unfamiliar adults, a man in a navy suit and a woman holding a legal pad. Jamal Carter? The man asked. Yes. I'm Mr. Lang from the district, he said. This is Ms. Perez. We're here to gather information. Jamal sat slowly. We've received multiple communications, Ms. Perez said. Parents, alumni, community members. Because of the video? Jamal asked. Because of a history, she replied. Mr. Lang folded his hands. We need to determine whether this represents a broader issue. Jamal let out a breath. It does. They asked him to recount incidents, dates, phrases, witnesses. Each question felt like reopening a wound. He spoke anyway. Precision mattered now. When he finished, Ms. Perez nodded. You're not alone. Outside, Jamal leaned against the wall, dizzy. Speaking the truth had weight. Carrying it alone had nearly crushed him. Sharing it didn't make it lighter, just wider. That night, his mother sat beside him at the kitchen table as emails poured in. Former students, parents, teachers from other schools. One message stopped him cold. I graduated 10 years ago. She told me college might be unrealistic for someone like me. I believed her. Another followed. I thought it was just me. Jamal stared at the screen until the words blurred. She's been doing this for years, he said. His mother nodded slowly. That's how systems work. They count on silence. The next morning, the principal announced Ms. Whitmore would be temporarily reassigned pending review. The phrasing landed wrong. Reassigned where? Jamal asked Marcus. Marcus shrugged. Not here. Relief flickered, brief and guilty. By afternoon, the school released a statement online. Neutral. Careful. No names. No admission. We take all concerns seriously. The comments underneath were anything but serious. Some defended Jamal. Others tore him apart. He's playing the race card. Teachers can't say anything anymore. Kids are too sensitive. Jamal closed the app. That evening a knock came at the door. A woman stood on the porch, clutching her purse like armor. My son was in her class, she said softly. He stopped raising his hand that year. Jamal felt something inside him settle into place. Not peace, purpose. This wasn't about him anymore. It never had been. And somewhere, deep inside the institution that had ignored it for years, pressure was building. Quiet, dangerous, inevitable. Like a crack spreading through glass. Waiting to break. The first news alert arrived at 6:12 a.m. Jamal was brushing his teeth when his phone vibrated against the sink, sharp and insistent. He ignored it at first, rinsing his mouth, staring at his own reflection. His eyes looked older than yesterday. Tired in a way sleep couldn't fix. The phone buzzed again. Then again. He picked it up. Local high school under fire after classroom video surfaces. His stomach dropped. By the time he reached the kitchen, his mother was already standing at the counter. Phone pressed to her ear, shoulders tight. Yes, she was saying. That's my son. No comment right now. She ended the call and met Jamal's eyes. It's on the morning news. He sat slowly. All of it. Enough. The video had spread overnight, shared and reshared, clipped and captioned. Some versions slowed the audio. Others zoomed in on Ms. Whitmore's face when she smiled. Commentators dissected her tone, her wording, her pauses. She never uses a slur, one anchor said. But listen to the implication. Another voice followed. This is what bias looks like in plain sight. Jamal's name appeared on screen, then vanished. At school, the parking lot was full of unfamiliar cars. News vans, cameras. A line of parents clustered near the entrance, voices overlapping. Inside, administrators moved fast and avoided eye contact. Teachers whispered. Students filmed everything. Did you see the clip where she says, "Students like you?" Marcus asked, breathless. It's everywhere. I didn't want it like this, Jamal said. Marcus shrugged. It's bigger than wanting now. By second period, the district released another statement. Longer this time. Still careful. We are committed to an inclusive learning environment. Still no apology. Third period never happened. Instead, Jamal was called to the conference room again. This time the principal was there. So was a district lawyer. We're placing Ms. Whitmore on administrative leave, the principal said. For how long? Jamal asked. The lawyer smiled politely. That depends. On what? His mother pressed. On findings. Outside the room, chanting drifted through the halls. Do better. Do better. A group of students had gathered near the entrance. Signs lifted high. Jamal recognized handwriting. Recognized faces. His chest tightened. Are you leading this? The principal asked. No, Jamal said. I'm surviving it. By lunchtime, national outlets picked up the story. The framing shifted. Less about one teacher. More about a system. Former students were interviewed anonymously. Parents spoke on record. Advocacy groups issued statements demanding accountability. Ms. Whitmore did not speak. Her social media vanished by afternoon. At 2:47 p.m., Jamal received an email from a woman named Rachel Kim, education correspondent for a major network. We would like to request an interview. He stared at the screen. I can't do this, he said. His mother nodded. You don't have to. But if I don't, he said, they'll control it. That evening, they sat on the couch under bright studio lights. Jamal's hands shook until the interviewer asked the first question. What did it feel like, Rachel Kim asked, to be singled out like that? Jamal swallowed. It felt normal. And that's the problem. The clip aired within the hour. Overnight, the school board announced an emergency meeting. By morning, sponsors pulled out of district partnerships. Alumni demanded resignations. Hashtags trended. Still no apology. At 6:03 p.m., exactly 24 hours after the video first surfaced, the district released a final statement. Effective immediately, Ms. Whitmore's contract has been terminated. Jamal read it twice. That's it, he asked. His mother nodded. That's it. Relief washed through him, followed by something heavier. Across town, a woman packed up her classroom for the last time. And Jamal understood something clearly then. Exposure ends careers. But it never erases damage. The silence came first. It slipped into Jamal's life quietly, settling into the spaces where noise used to be. Text threads went unanswered. Seats beside him stayed empty. Teachers who once nodded now looked through him, as if proximity itself carried risk. He noticed it in small ways. A group project reassigned without explanation. A counselor suddenly unavailable. A scholarship recommendation delayed. None of it was loud enough to name. All of it was deliberate. People are scared, Marcus said one afternoon, walking with him past the gym. They don't want to be next. Next for what? Jamal asked. For telling the truth. The first email arrived that night. You ruined a good teacher's life. He stared at the screen until his eyes burned. The second came minutes later. Hope the attention was worth it. His mother closed the laptop. You don't need to read this. I do, Jamal said. This is the price. At school the next day, a substitute stood in room 214, voice shaky, lesson thin. The room felt haunted. Jamal avoided looking at the front. Halfway through class, a folded note slid onto his desk. Snitches don't get sympathy. He crumpled it slowly, pulse steady despite the anger clawing up his spine. By lunch, rumors had mutated. He planned it. His mom pushed him. He wants a lawsuit. Jamal ate alone again. That afternoon, he was called to the principal's office. Not for support. For concerns. We've noticed increased disruption, the principal said carefully. Disruption. Jamal echoed. Media presence. Student protest. Tension. So, Jamal asked. So we're asking you to keep a low profile. His mother's jaw tightened. You want him invisible. We want stability, the principal said. Jamal stood. Stability for who? The answer hung unspoken. At home, Jamal found his room untouched but changed. His desk felt smaller. The walls closer. Sleep came in fragments. He dreamed of classrooms with no doors. The next morning, a college recruiter canceled a visit. Uncertain circumstances, the email read. Jamal laughed once, bitter. They mean me. That night Marcus called. They're blaming you, he said quietly. Some teachers. They're saying this wouldn't have happened if you'd handled it better. Jamal closed his eyes. Handled racism better. Survived it silently. The anger finally broke through. I did everything right, Jamal said. I followed rules designed to protect them. Marcus hesitated. That's the problem. The following week, a parent cornered Jamal in the parking lot. You think you're a hero, the woman snapped. My daughter loved that class. Jamal met her eyes. Did your daughter ever feel small in it? She didn't answer. By Friday, Jamal felt hollowed out. Vindication had been loud. Support fleeting. Consequences steady and quiet. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at a blank scholarship essay. Write about resilience, his mother suggested gently. He shook his head. They want a version of me that doesn't make them uncomfortable. She reached for his hand. Then don't give it to them. A knock came at the door. A man stood outside, suit rumpled, eyes tired. Jamal Carter. Yes. I'm with the State Education Board, he said. We're expanding the investigation. Jamal felt something shift. Inside, the man laid out documents, emails, complaints, timelines. Your case opened a door, he said. What happens next won't be clean. Jamal nodded. I know. As the man left, Jamal stood at the window, watching his taillights fade. Retaliation was real. So was fear. But beneath it, something stronger had taken root. They had tried to bury the truth. They hadn't realized it was already growing. The hearing took place in a room designed to feel neutral, which meant it felt cold. Beige walls, long table, microphones placed like quiet threats. Jamal sat between his mother and a district-appointed advocate he had met only minutes before. Across from them, administrators arranged their folders with careful hands, faces composed for record. A clock ticked too loudly. This proceeding is to review conduct and compliance, the chairwoman said. We will maintain order. Jamal nodded, though no one was speaking to him directly. That, he had learned, was how power worked, addressing process instead of people. The district lawyer spoke first. Our intent is clarity, not spectacle. Jamal's advocate leaned in. Clarity comes from facts. Ms. Whitmore was not present. Her absence sat heavy like a decision already made. In her place were statements, typed, sanitized, and read aloud by counsel. She denies discriminatory intent, the lawyer said. She maintains her comments were academic. Jamal felt his jaw tighten. Academic didn't explain tone. Academic didn't explain patterns. The chairwoman turned to him. Jamal Carter, you may speak. He leaned toward the microphone. The hum filled his ears. I'm not here because of one comment, he said. I'm here because comments became expectations. Expectations became limits. A board member frowned. Can you be specific? Yes, Jamal said. She questioned my ability in front of peers. She used phrases that separated me from normal students. She framed discipline as culture. Pause followed. Pens moved. Eyes avoided his. A former student testified next via video call. Voice shaking, face half-shadowed. She told me community college was more realistic, the student said. I was top of my class. Another followed. Then another. Stories overlapped. Years apart. Same language. The room shifted. An administrator cleared his throat. We were unaware of the volume. Jamal's mother spoke then, voice steady. You were aware. You were comfortable. The chairwoman raised a hand. Please. A teacher from another department testified, choosing her words like stepping stones. Concerns were raised informally, she said. They were deprioritized. By whom? Jamal's advocate asked. The teacher hesitated. By leadership. The silence that followed felt earned. The district lawyer returned to procedure. We must consider due process. Jamal leaned forward. What about student process, he asked. What about the years lost? The chairwoman looked at him directly for the first time. This board acknowledges harm. Acknowledgement landed hollow. A recess was called. Jamal stood by the window, watching reporters gather outside. His phone buzzed with updates he didn't open. You did well, his advocate said. I don't want well, Jamal replied. I want change. When they reconvened, the chairwoman read findings into the record. There is sufficient evidence of conduct inconsistent with district values. Values, not accountability. Recommendations include mandatory bias training, policy review, and reporting mechanisms. Jamal's chest tightened. And consequences. The chairwoman met his gaze. Employment actions have already been taken. Ready. Past tense. Closed. As the hearing adjourned, a reporter shouted a question through the doorway. Jamal, do you feel justice was served? He stopped. Thought of the emails, the cancelled opportunities, the quiet punishments. I feel heard, he said. Justice is louder. Side cameras flashed. His mother squeezed his hand. They had forced the system to look at itself. Whether it would truly change was still an open question. But the record was written now. And it would not forget. The day after the hearing felt unreal, like the world had tilted and not bothered to settle back. Jamal woke before his alarm, heart already racing, phone dark and face down on the nightstand. For once, the quiet frightened him more than the noise. By 8 a.m. it ended. Push notification lit the screen. School board faces backlash after hearing. Community demands more. Jamal sat up. His mother appeared in the doorway, already dressed, coffee untouched in her hand. They're calling again, she said. Everyone. He nodded. What changed? Pressure, she replied. The kind they can't manage quietly. At school, administrators moved with forced calm. A memo had been emailed to staff and students overnight, announcing an emergency board session scheduled for that evening. No details, just urgency. In the hallway, Marcus caught up with Jamal. You see the alumni letter. What letter? Over 200 signatures. Donors, former teachers, local leaders. They're demanding resignations. Jamal felt a tight knot loosen slightly in his chest. They ignored us for years, Marcus continued. Now they're scared of money. During lunch, Jamal's phone buzzed with a message from the state board investigator. New findings. Call when you can. He stepped into an empty classroom. They found emails, the investigator said when Jamal called. Internal ones. Complaints flagged and dismissed. By who? Jamal asked. Senior administrators, the man replied. Including people still employed. Jamal leaned against a desk, breath shallow. What happens now? Now the district has a choice, the investigator said. Act or be exposed. By afternoon, the news cycle shifted again. Headlines sharpened. Commentary grew less polite. This isn't about one teacher, a panelist said on a national program. It's about a culture of protection. Jamal didn't watch long. He couldn't. At 6 p.m., the emergency board meeting began. Jamal and his mother watched from the living room as the live stream buffered, froze, then finally loaded. The chairwoman spoke first, her voice measured but strained. In light of new information, the word new did a lot of work. She continued. The board has accepted the resignations of 2 administrators effective immediately. Jamal's mother covered her mouth. The chairwoman didn't pause. Additionally, we are launching an independent audit of district practices. The chat feed exploded. Marcus texted, "This is it." The meeting stretched on. Motions. Carefully worded apologies that avoided names but acknowledged harm to students of color. Then the chairwoman cleared her throat. One final matter, she said. Effective immediately, the district is terminating all remaining contractual ties related to the matter under review. Jamal leaned forward. This includes severance agreements. There it was. No golden parachute. No quiet exit. Just consequences. When the meeting ended, Jamal sat back, stunned. Relief surged through him, hot and sudden, followed by exhaustion so deep it felt physical. They're done, he said quietly. His mother nodded. At least some of them. Later that night, Jamal stepped outside. The air was cool, sharp. His phone buzzed with messages. Support, gratitude, stories still unfolding. One stood out. Because of you, I finally filed my complaint. He stared at the screen, then typed back. Because of all of us. Across town, offices were being emptied. Files boxed. Names removed from doors. Careers unraveled not by vengeance, but by daylight. Jamal understood something then. Justice didn't arrive all at once. It arrived in waves. And this was only the first. The morning after the district's announcements, Jamal woke to a city that felt the same, but subtly shifted. The air carried a quiet charge, as if the world had taken a deep breath after weeks of tension. Birds chirped as usual. Cars honked in the distance. Yet every small sound felt amplified, pointed, somehow aware. He sat at the kitchen table with his mother, coffee steaming between them. The news cycle had shifted to national discussions on bias in schools. Reports replayed clips of Ms. Whitmore, juxtaposed with statements from students, alumni, and advocates. Jamal's own voice echoed back through the speakers. "I can't believe this is real," he said. "It's real," his mother replied, her voice calm but heavy with fatigue. "You've made a difference." Jamal nodded but didn't smile. Relief was tempered by exhaustion and unease. Even with victories, the cost remained. Rumors, cancelled opportunities, whispers in hallways, eyes that lingered too long. Social media was a mix of support and criticism. Not everyone approved, and some never would. At school, some students approached him quietly, offering handshakes, nods, whispered thanks. Others avoided him entirely. Teachers were courteous but distant. The halls felt calmer, yet Jamal felt the weight of being both visible and scrutinized. Every glance reminded him that speaking truth had consequences, some small, some lasting. That afternoon, a local education nonprofit reached out to Jamal, asking to feature his story in a campaign promoting equity and reporting of bias. He hesitated, thinking of every lesson, every subtle humiliation, every instance that had been dismissed. Then he agreed. Walking home, Jamal passed room 214. The door was empty, the hallway quiet. He imagined the classroom filled with students, buzzing with potential, free from fear. The thought made him ache. At dinner, his mother finally asked the question he had avoided. "Do you feel justice was served?" He paused. "Partially," he said. "She's gone. The administrators have consequences. But it doesn't erase years of damage." His mother nodded, understanding. "Healing doesn't come overnight. But you've opened the door." That night, Jamal wrote in his journal, not for anyone else but himself. He wrote about fear, resilience, and the moments he felt small yet found strength. He wrote about the people who supported him, those who stayed silent, and those who tried to protect themselves at the cost of truth. By the next morning, the media coverage had moved on, but Jamal's life had changed permanently. Teachers who had previously ignored whispers now approached him, quietly seeking guidance. Students who had doubted themselves looked to him as an example. He was both burden and beacon. He realized that speaking up doesn't simply change one person. It ripples outward, touching lives in ways invisible at first. Jamal understood that the system hadn't been fixed, but cracks had been exposed. Sunlight had entered spaces that were meant to remain dark. By midweek, he returned to his usual routines. Homework, soccer practice, family dinners. Yet beneath the surface, a new vigilance pulsed. Jamal understood that justice is never fully complete. It's a process, sometimes slow, sometimes painful, always requiring witnesses and courage. He looked in the mirror before bed, eyes steady. "You survived," he whispered. "And you made a difference." Somewhere in the city, Ms. Whitmore's career had ended, but the lessons remained. The ripples continued. Jamal knew that the fight against bias was ongoing. But for the first time he felt empowered, no longer invisible. He closed his eyes, letting the quiet wash over him. The city outside continued in its rhythm, unknowing yet changed, and Jamal felt ready to keep moving forward, watchful, wary, and unbroken. The aftermath was not clean. It was not simple. It was, however, honest. And that honesty, battered, bruised, and raw, was something Jamal could carry into every classroom, every hallway, every future encounter. Justice, he realized, is as much about resilience as it is about consequence. And resilience, Jamal Carter decided, was his to keep. Jamal sat at his desk, the late afternoon sun cutting across the pages of his notebook. The words felt heavier now than ever. Words about the past, words about truth, words about the responsibility he had taken on. He had expected relief, maybe even closure, when Ms. Whitmore was gone and the district finally acted. Instead, he felt a quiet reckoning settle inside him, a lingering awareness that this was only the beginning of understanding the full weight of what he had endured. He flipped back to the first page. The entry dated the morning after the video surfaced. Each line recorded the fear, anger, and uncertainty he had carried. He had watched classmates whisper, teachers look away, and administrators shield themselves while the harm accumulated over years. He reread the words. I am not invisible. I will not be silenced. A knock at the door interrupted him. Marcus leaned in, backpack slung over one shoulder. Homework? He asked, smiling, though there was something cautious in his eyes. Yeah, Jamal said, shutting the notebook slowly. Trying to catch up. Marcus pulled a chair closer. You've been everywhere lately. He nodded toward the stack of news articles on Jamal's desk, printed stories of school board decisions, editorials, and student commentary. Do you ever stop to think about what this has done to you? Jamal exhaled. Every day. I see it in the hallways, in the way people look at me. Some are supportive, some still suspicious. It doesn't stop. But you did it, Marcus said softly. You made a difference. Even if it's uncomfortable, even if it costs you. Jamal nodded. He knew Marcus was right, but right didn't erase the exhaustion. He thought about the cancelled opportunities, the subtle coldness of teachers who once nodded approvingly, the invisible weight of being the one who spoke. He thought about how, for years, students like him had been told, through tone, phrasing, and silence, that they didn't belong, that every small success had to be justified, that every voice needed permission to exist. He opened the notebook again and started writing, letting the words flow. This time he wrote about hope, about resilience, about the moments when he had refused to bow to intimidation, when he had stood and read aloud in room 214 despite the laughter, the smirks, the dismissive glances, about the students who had reached out quietly to share their own stories of marginalization. By evening, the room was quiet, the house still except for the low hum of a refrigerator and the distant honk of traffic. His mother appeared, hands on her hips, studying him. You've grown, she said, not accusing, not congratulating, simply stating a fact. And it's not over. But you've changed the way people see you, and the way they see themselves. Jamal looked up. I don't feel changed, he admitted. I feel heavier, more aware. I can't unsee what's been happening all around me. That's not weakness, she said. It's clarity. Later he walked to the front yard. The air was crisp, carrying the distant smell of autumn leaves and freshly mown grass. He imagined room 214 again, now empty, quiet, but no longer hostile. The students who remained would be entering a classroom subtly reshaped by his actions. The teacher who replaced Ms. Whitmore would not have the same unchecked authority. Small cracks had been exposed in a system that had long ignored harm, and sunlight had entered where it had been blocked for too long. Jamal felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He couldn't control everything. He couldn't erase the years of damage. But he could act now, speak up, bear witness, and support those whose voices had been muted. He pulled his phone from his pocket. Messages had stopped buzzing. Notifications had slowed. The world felt quieter than it had in weeks, but he knew that calm could shift at any moment. People's perceptions were fragile. Systems were slow. Bias was persistent. But he also knew that a single voice, courageously raised, could create change that rippled farther than anyone imagined. He texted Marcus. Meet me tomorrow. I want to talk about starting a student group. Help others who can't speak yet. Minutes later, Marcus replied. Already on it. Jamal smiled, the first genuine one in days. For all the fatigue, the tension, and the quiet retaliation he had endured, there was purpose now. There was action. There was possibility. He returned to the notebook, pen poised. He began outlining ideas for workshops, peer mentorship, and awareness campaigns. Each word carried weight, but each also carried hope. The work would be slow. It would be frustrating. It would not erase the past, but it would build a future where students like him could exist without fear of humiliation, judgment, or coded bias. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting amber light across the room, Jamal closed his eyes and breathed deeply. The aftermath had been hard, the retaliation painful, but the system had been challenged. Voices had been heard. Justice, imperfect as it was, had arrived in tangible ways. And for the first time in weeks, he felt a sense of grounded purpose. He opened his eyes. The night outside was calm. The world had shifted, just a little, because he had refused to remain silent. And that small shift, quiet, steady, unstoppable, was enough to carry him forward. Jamal Carter understood then. Speaking truth was never easy, rarely comfortable, but it was the only way to forge change. And change, however incremental, mattered.